Good evening and welcome. I'm Alain Bornstein. You normally see me presenting matters pertaining to the Holocaust, so this is a very rare privilege for me to do something more cheerful and chirpy. The running order of the evening will be that I have the privilege of casting away, only in theory, Rabbi Zobin, and then Viv Levy will cast away Rosie Grzinski, and finally Ayala Mora Prager will cast away John Denneman. Before I make the inevitable superfluous introduction of Rabbi Zobin, which I will do, I want to take the opportunity at the commencement of the evening, as opposed to at the end of the evening, when votes of thanks are normally a sign for everyone to leave a Zoom meeting, to especially thank Simon Balsam, who has done the technology for this evening, many of the Zoom events of the shul for the past 3 months, and has also worked tirelessly together with Jonathan Marriott on masterminding the reopening of Ner Yisrael. So I think it is appropriate and apposite to thank Simon at the beginning of this evening. Whilst undertaking votes of thanks, I will also thank Dr. Veronique Berman for all her hard work and for arranging this evening. Our castaway, as I said, needs no introduction, but nonetheless I will do so. Rabbi Eliezer Zobin was born in 1975 in Golders Green and was one of 5 children. He learned in yeshivas for 17 years and received samicha in Be'er Yaakov, a very prestigious yeshiva kollel in Israel. He has a MA in Jewish education from London University, is the principal of the Independent Jewish Day School, and of Emmanuel and Rosh Basin Medrash, forgive me, of the London School of Jewish Studies. He joined Ner Yisrael as Associate Rav in 2014 and succeeded Rabbi Kimchi, the founding Rav, in March 2019. That's enough from me. Rabbi Zobin, welcome. Let's start, as is the inevitable format in Desert Island Disc, and telling us a little bit about your parents and your grandparents, who you were privileged to all know.
Thank you very much, Alan, and thank you for that warm welcome and introduction. I must confess to slight trepidation being interviewed by you, but I hope this all goes well. So yes, I grew up in, as you said, in Golders Green. I was a Menorah Primary Hasmo boy. My parents come from quite different backgrounds. On my father's family, we are firmly East European and actually Litvaks, Lithuanians. My great-grandparents came over in the early 1900s and went quite a traditional Jewish route via the East End, and then moved out to the suburbs. On my father's side, as I said, they came from East Europe, from Lithuania, from Kovna, and that region. On my father's grandfather came over in 1906 in the quite a large wave of Jewish immigration. The story was he was a second son, and his older brother had been conscripted into the Russian army. His older brother was not quite as strong a person as he was, and he volunteered and effectively went into the Russian army instead of his older brother. He finished his term of service, and then in 1906, it was now his turn as the second brother to be called up. 1906 was the Russo-Japanese War, and lots of Jews were called up to serve in the Russian army. At that point, he had had enough and ran off to England. We actually have a little bit of a Grzinski connection also in that side of the family. I know Rosie isn't the one interviewing me here, but my great-grandfather worked for the Grzinski family. He used to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and deliver warm, steaming hot bread from the Grzinski bakery around the streets of East London and Stamford Hill. And ever since then, us Zobins have hated getting up early in the morning. So Rosie, we blame the Grzinskis for that. So that's on my father's side. On my mother's side, we are Yekkers. I grew up in Munxt, and we're very proud of our Yekkish ancestry. They were from Frankfurt, and the Frankfurt community was a very proud and important community, a very central Jewish community. My great-great-grandfather was one of the 11 signatories to the document, the very famous invitation to Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch to move to Frankfurt. So these were staunch Hirschians, And if I have time, I can tell you a little bit more about their relationship with Rav Hirsch and that school of thought, that philosophy. But my grandmother, who I was very close to, and when I speak about the song I've chosen, I'll speak a little bit more about her, really felt her whole life that she was a product of the Hirschian system, Torim Derech Eretz, and the Frankfurt school of thought and the Frankfurt community. There was something very central to us growing up, and her pride in that Masorah and in that tradition.
And it's quite rare, was quite rare, at least pre-war, for Yekers to marry Eastern Europeans. Was that ever an issue with all your grandparents?
On my grandparents' side, the Yekka married the Yekka and an East European married an East European. My parents' generation, it was where they married an East European descent, married a Yekkish descent. That was after quite a while after the Second World War. My parents would want me to clarify. And no, I grew up in a home that was blessed with an incredible marriage. My parents are absolute role models of incredible parenting and incredible love and esteem and respect for each other. I hope they're listening, because they should know how much the home I grew up in means to us and to all our siblings. We really grew up in a home of a role model of warmth, of achnosas orchim. Every meal there was extra places laid. There were guests there. Very often these guests were not easy people. These were difficult people. My mother's a proud and fastidious housewife and housekeeper, and very often these guests were not always the easiest guests to have in accordance with the home she would have naturally wanted, and yet they were always more than welcome and were regulars at our table. And the example they set of warmth and love of Torah and mitzvahs remains an inspiration to me to this day. My mother's a teacher. I come from a family of teachers. We're all teachers. My brother's a teacher. My sister's a teacher. My aunt is a teacher. My uncle is a teacher. My mother is a teacher. And she really is a wonderful teacher. My father worked his whole career in the city. He was a stockbroker. He joined that world when it was quite unusual for frum Jews really to be in the city. And he stood out for his honesty at his retirement. One of his colleagues spoke about him as the most honest person he had ever met. And these are values really very deeply embedded in us through my wonderful parents and the example they showed us. You also asked about my siblings, and maybe I'll take this as a chance to mention, you said we were one of 5. Many of you will know 3 of my siblings, but there was a 4th, who was my sister, Chana Shifra, who was born very severely disabled, very severely Down syndrome. She passed away when I was 11. We were very, very close as a family. And in those days, Kisharon was very much in its infancy. It was not something taken for granted that one would keep at home a Down syndrome child, especially one who was as unwell as she was. Kisharon was not able in those days really equipped to look after her. And again, my parents were truly inspirational and incredible in raising her as part of our family. And she was very precious to us. She was very dear to us. We always felt privileged to have her as a sibling. And it's an interesting thing. Many years later, my mother said to me that she worried at the time as we were growing up that we would feel starved of time, and because the weight of a sibling who is unwell takes a lot of family attention away, and she worried about it. But I can honestly say, growing up, none of us ever felt that. And I've since spoken to my siblings. None of us ever felt that. We only felt lucky and blessed to have such a wonderful sister, and really admiration. We understood from a very young age admiration of both our parents who cared for her at home so lovingly. So I hope, again, I'm so delighted and honoured to have the floor here to be able to share those feelings about my parents.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Zobin. Forgive me for asking this, but did the fact that, albeit all of us who incurred tragedies would prefer that things had been different, but did the fact that you and your parents and your siblings suffered this tragedy give you an insight in your rabbinic role when you very often have to deal with people who are either, Rahman al-Islam, God forbid, about to be bereaved, or literally bereaved within minutes, hours, days? Did that give you a particular insight?
I'm more comfortable talking about my parents than I am about myself in this context. I guess the answer is yes. I guess the answer is yes. Definitely, these were experiences that we thought about and that left an impact on me, and I think all of us. And having shared experiences, of course. I will say, because maybe it should be said, the reality of life is that we all go through difficult experiences and we all suffer losses. And at the time, these losses are deeply painful and obviously so. But with time and with healing, one is able to draw a lot of richness out of it. And that in no way is that a lack of a sense of loss. Of course, one always misses the person one's lost. Of course, one would always want things to have been different. But equally, one sees and learns that there are many paths in life, and one didn't choose the path of bereavement, but having gone through it, one draws growth and richness from that deep distress and difficulty also.
Thank you very much. Rabbi Zobin, I think we've got a good time as any for us to tell us your first record and why you chose it.
Yeah, so I chose this record in honor of my grandmother, my mother's mother. It's Vivaldi's Four Seasons. I'm not going to speak too much about the piece of music itself, other than to say it tells a story, as all music does. It tells the story of the four seasons, of spring, summer, autumn, and winter, in that order. And I chose it because it's the first piece of classic music I remember. My grandmother took me. I don't remember actually if anyone else went with us, whether it was just my grandmother and I or some of the other siblings or cousins, but she took me to hear Vivaldi's Four Seasons. And I always associate this piece, therefore, with her. As I said, she was really from the nobility of Frankfurt, a wonderful lady, sorely missed, a lady of high education. In Frankfurt, they learnt both Chol and Kodesh to a remarkably high degree. She was an inspiration, someone who went through arrived in the shores of England in the 1930s, as did so many others, as a refugee, and built a life out of that. Another shared experience which has a Nair connection is that we used to go together to hear the late Rabbi Isaac Bornstein in Nair, my grandmother and I, and to have an experience of a grandson and a grandmother sitting together learning Torah is really speaks volumes about Nair and Rabbi Bornstein, that he could capture such a wide market, and anyone who remembers him knows that he was able to do so. But this piece of music, as I said, is really dedicated in her memory, and it's a music that I always associate with her. It's the first piece of classic music that I remember hearing in concert, and reminds me of that shared experience with her.
I think the song has finished. Thank you very much for that song. I think interestingly, you mentioned a Nair connection to your late grandmother. I recall Felix Storm saying that she took him to school on his very first day in England. So She sounds a very special lady, and I'm pleased you have fond memories of her and all your grandparents. Let's turn, if I may, to you personally. You mentioned that you trod the well-trodden path of Menorah Primary School, Hasmonean Grammar School. At Hasmonean, you famously, and this is true, I have on good authority, and you will, I hope, forgive me for mentioning this, excelled academically to the extent that you topped the A-level charts in economics, and then went to learn in various yeshivas. So can I first of all ask you, when I assume that you were not one of the pupils that used to trouble the various disciplinarians in charge at Hasmonean. Is that a fair comment? Is that a fair assumption?
I was not one of the students who
troubled the disciplinarians at Hasmonean.
Well, first of all, you've evidently done your research well. I'm not quite sure what your sources are for some of that information. I didn't know it was known about particularly. I think it did get down to Zobin, where's your school tie? I think that was the end of my disciplinary issues. That's a fair point.
And when you left to go to yeshiva, did you envisage the 17-year stay, or did you envisage perhaps joining your father in the city, or leaving somewhat earlier to undertake your destiny as a teacher, as you were and indeed are?
So I definitely did not envisage that many years in Israel. The plan was a shorter time in yeshiva, and I was not planning a career in teaching either. I was and remain fascinated by economics, and I still follow the markets and the charts as a hobby. I grew up in a home where my father has an enduring love of Torah, but also an enduring love of economics, and that was something that I enjoyed. But I became drawn into the love of learning and of Torah in Israel. In fact, the next two songs that I've chosen are both connected with my yeshiva experiences. As you say, I went to Israel and learnt first under Rabbi Kushelevsky, who many of you will know, and then went to Be'er Yaakov to learn under R Moshe Shmuel Shapira. And both had a big impact on me. But in particular, R Moshe Shmuel Shapira was someone who I saw and continue to see as really an angel of a human being. He was a malach in my eyes. He was a man of exceptional dignity, incredible warmth. When one spoke to him, one felt waves of love really emerging from him. He had this yeshiva Be'er Yaakov in the village of Be'er Yaakov. And Be'er Yaakov was a little village in the Ramallah-Lod region of the country. It's now been swallowed up, to my disappointment, by the conurbation that Ramallah has become. I was in Israel a couple of years ago and decided to visit, and the orange groves I remember and the fields are all now high-rise buildings. But he chose to found this yeshiva in this little town, in this little village. And he was, to me, someone who conveyed the transmission of Torah into of the East European Torah into the next world. But I am getting ahead of myself because I think he's associated with the third piece of music that I will be talking about. So I'll step back a little and talk about him a little later.
So let me just try to chart you went to Reb Tzvi Kushelevsky's, you went to Be'er Yaakov, and you were close to Reb Moshe Shmuel Shapira. I'm going to ask you, in your sort of day-to-day life, as you paskin shilas, do you very often think, what would Reb Moshe Shapiro how would Reb Moshe Shapiro have dealt with it? Is he a part of your day-to-day thoughts?
Okay, so maybe we should step back a little because, as I said, he's associated with the third piece of music. In between these two, I spent a short amount of time in Mir, and the second piece of music is associated, connected with my time in Mir. I was not there a long time. It was too big for me, the yeshiva. It didn't suit my needs and my personality and what I was looking for. But in that time, I had the privilege of having a connection with a number of people, which I'll just mention here at this point. I had the very beautiful opportunity to draw close to Rabbi Rafael Shmulevitz, the son of Rabbi Chaim Shmulevitz, who was actually Rabbi Kimchi's, one of Rabbi Kimchi's mentors. And that to me was a vision of a great man. I also got to know through a series of interesting events Rabbi Elyashiv. And the background to this is that Mir has a very slow davening. Now, those of you who know me know that by nature I'm not a slow davener, and I used to find Mir too slow. So I looked around for somewhere else to daven, and I found a small shul near the Mir, which literally used to get 14 people, 15 people on a Shabbos morning, and Rabbi Eliezer was the Rav there, and there was no one there. It was just this little empty shul, and I started davening there. I used to daven there on Shabbos. I used to daven there on Yomim Noraim. And this was a time when he wasn't mobbed, he wasn't as busy as he later became. I used to go home to his house after Shabbos for Havdalah. He used to invite us to his home for Havdalah, and that was a very rare and unique opportunity. It was also actually in Mir that I first became particularly interested in philosophy, which remains an abiding love of mine. I'd always been drawn to what we call machshava, which is perhaps a more sort of light Kabbalistic view of the world, and had engaged somewhat with that world. But when I was in Mir, in an interesting development, I got an eye infection. You may say, what has an eye infection got to do with philosophy? And the story was that I was unable to learn 3 seforim a day. The yeshiva schedule is very intense, and I was unable to look at little texts for 3 learning sessions a day due to this eye infection. And I looked around for something else to do. And in the R yeshiva, not too far from me, was Rabbi Dr. David Gottlieb, who many of you will know, who has an interest in philosophy, and I used to go and listen to him speaking. And that drew me into the world of the Moreh Nevuchim, the world of the guide to the perplexed, the great philosophers from Aristotle and Plato and Socrates through to Thomas Nagel and other more contemporary philosophers, and that actually opened up a whole area of my life through the coincidence of an eye infection. So that's in terms of my time that's spent in Mir. So I will get back to your question, but maybe I'll use the third piece of music as a chance to speak about R Moshe Shmuel and here just speak more about the intervening years before that stage of my life.
Thank you very much. I think we've probably reached a suitable stage for your second piece of music, Rabbi Zobin.
So this is a piece of music, V'niskav Hashem Levado. It's composed by Carelebach. I actually still walk the streets of Yerushalayim when I was in yeshiva. One could still hear him giving a little impromptu concerts on occasion on street corners. One would see a crowd of people gathered, and he would be strumming away on his guitar. I chose this piece because to me it's got very visceral emotion and spirituality to it, and in my mind it's connected with an opening up of a world of spirituality that happened to me in Israel. This particular piece actually was first played to me by my dear friend Rabbi David Tugendhaft. He's now the Rav in our neighbouring, our sister community just down the street on Brent Street, and this is a song that to me conveys very deep spirituality. The words of the song are pasuk and another pasuk connected by a medrash. It talks about Yaakov remaining alone at night, struggling with the angel, and it speaks about God being alone. And there's something about aloneness and a spiritual journey that we all need to take alone, and sometimes that deep, dark struggle in the night, and yet what a wonderful sense of unity can emerge from it. That to me is what this song is about.
ונשגב השם לבדו שבם בדו ביום ההוא ונשגב השם לבדו שם לבדו ביום ההוא וימוצא ויעקב לבדו ויראו בגשמי עד לא יישא שוכן עד לא יישא שוכן וימוצא ויעקב
Thank you very much. So, Rabbi Zobin, you married your wife, Aviva, how many years ago?
Oh, goodness.
Sorry.
This is not fair, and I said no.
I'll move on.
21 years ago.
21 years ago. Apologies.
I'm joking. My wife is sitting here in the room with me.
And I'm fascinated by the fact when you were inducted as our Rav, Jonathan Marriott pointed out that you sat as a child next to your father-in-law, which I know you say you like quick davening, but that's a testament to your good conduct, because if I would have sat next to my father-in-law as a child, I wouldn't have got near. But how did you and Aviva get together? Because I think your families must obviously have known each other quite well.
Yeah, so I grew up in shul sitting next to my father, who I knew was my father, and my future father-in-law, who I didn't know was going to be my father-in-law at that time. I am a very close friend to one of my wife's brothers. We were very friendly for many, many years, and the families were very closely connected. My mother and my mother-in-law both worked together in Menorah Primary School, where my mother teaches. So there was a long and extended family connection. I used to go and visit my future grandfather-in-law, who was a very old man at the time and had passed away by the time we got married. But we used to go and visit him, and he used to give us some very nice marzipans, I remember. So we had a very long-term family connection. The Yekhish half of my family was connected to the Yekhish half of my wife's family for many centuries. And I remember my wife still from primary school, though she unfortunately does not remember me from that far back. But this was a suggestion. It was a shidduch in the sense that it was a suggestion, but the families there was very close and many years of close connection there that lay behind this particular connection.
It must have been a dream to draw up the wedding list with all the mutual friends. Rabbi Zobin, so you were in Israel for a number of years, and I think you had your number of years of your married life with your wife Aviva there, and probably a number of your children were born there. How difficult was it for you to leave Israel, to return here? And I think I'm running out of time, so I'm going to combine two questions in one and ask you to briefly answer it. I've got two questions. One, how difficult was it? And two, you returned here, as far as I know, to teach in Emmanuel and then went up the ranks. And in 2014, had a change of direction, although many would say, including you and probably your predecessor, that teaching and rabbinate is one and the same. And I can certainly attest to that. But you had a change of direction. What, if you can say something about what prompted that?
Okay, so this gives me a chance to speak about the question that you asked before. To what degree do I live with the image of my my great rebbes in front of me? The two teachers of Torah who had the most influence on me were R Moshe Shmuel of Be'er Yaakov and Rabbi Eliezer Zobin. Both are briskers, and briskers associated in the public mind with this Soloveitchian, very analytical method of learning, and it is that. And for me, that was absolutely up my street. I loved it, and it spoke to my soul. But they were also and are also absolutely paradigms of Torah's Chesed. I spoke about the waves of love that come really out of both of my rebbes, both of my teachers. And for my wife and myself, being able to take what we had the privilege of learning and share it was a no-brainer. It was absolutely the right thing and the thing that we wanted to do. We had made Aliyah. We thought our life was in Israel. Through a series of events, which I don't have time to talk about now, we had ended up involved in various projects which had drawn us more and more to Chutz La'aretz. We had spent some months back in England on particular projects. I was traveling more backwards and forwards. And there came a point where it just made sense. We realized that the things we could do and the things that we could give were going to be here back in England. And in a series of very swift decisions, we moved back. So in one sense, it was difficult. And I always joke if I came home one day from shul and said to my wife, you know, let's go back to Israel. She would say, great, I'll go upstairs and pack the suitcases. But on the other hand, it was something that mattered to us both and something that we wanted to do. We wanted to share that Torah. And as you say, for me, teaching in the rabbinate really is the same, in many ways, the same path, the same career. In 2010, I'd been for about half a year as acting rabbi in Dunstan Roads when Rabbi Lubelsky was on a sabbatical, and that also whet our appetite to some degree for communal rabbinic teaching rather than just school teaching. So I feel lucky that I'm able to balance the two loves of my life and the two areas that I enjoy, rabbinate and teaching together in the current position.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Zobin. We are nearing end of time, so can I ask you your third record and the reasons for it?
Yeah, so the third record is something that I jumped at the opportunity of sharing, and that this evening gave me the chance to share. It's my Rebbe, R Moshe Shmuel Shapira, was not just a great Rosh Yeshiva, he was also a composer of music. He was a very musical man. And not only did he compose music, but he also transmitted music that was and is in danger of being lost, the music of East Europe. And this particular tune is one composed by someone called Rabbi Yonah Minsker. He was an Eloi, a child prodigy, who learnt in yeshiva with R Moshe Shmuel and was brutally murdered by Lithuanian partisans in a pogrom in 1941. And this is an incredible tune that he composed, a remarkably beautiful tune, and one that's in danger of being lost. It's not really known outside the world of the students of Be'er Yaakov. When this evening was mooted, an idea of speaking and doing Desert Islands discs came up, I wanted to share this song, and to my amazement, I found that it doesn't exist anywhere. It has never been recorded before. It does not exist online. There simply is no recording, because R Moshe Shmuel used to sing it on Shabbos. It comes from the words of one of the Zemiras. And in honor of this event, I actually stirred me to arrange for it to be put together. I mentioned my brother-in-law, who's a dear friend, Michael, my wife's brother, and he has a son who is very musical. And I sang the song to them and sent a recording of it. I'm no great singer, but I managed to sing it correctly. He then composed music to it and arranged for a chazan to sing it. And therefore, what we are about to hear is on the Nair YouTube channel. It's a piece of music that doesn't exist anywhere else, anywhere in the world. It's a beautiful piece of music, and it's one that just can't be lost. And I dedicate this song in the memory of my Rosh Yeshiva's Chavrusa, who died in 1941, Rabbi Yona Minsker. And the words of the song are taken from the Zemer on Shabbos morning, Baruch Hashem Yom Yom. It comes from one of the verses. And the words are Yetzaveh Tsur Chasdo Carelebach Kabitz, that Hashem, the rock, should command his kindness to gather in his congregation from all four directions, gather in his flock, and to cause them to rest on the lofty mounts, Yerushalayim, Zion. And then it carries on, returning with us, the outcasts gathering in. And then it refers to the midrashic theme. It does not say he will bring back, that God will bring us back, but it says he will come back, that Hashem will return with us. That when we find ourselves in a difficult situation, when we find ourselves going through hard times, we should know that Hashem is with us. And therefore, when we are in Golus, he is there with us, and therefore he comes back with us from Golus, from the exile, which we hope will happen. And these were the songs perhaps prophetically composed by Rabbi Yona Minsker, who went through, in the words of your father's book, a long night in a most painful way. And he composed this very, very beautiful song. And I really feel grateful that I have the opportunity to share it with everyone here today.
Thank you.
Yetzaveh Tsur Chasdo, ki lo yisob lekabetz, me'abarucho yisodov lehikobetz, odov lehikobetz. Yetzaveh Tsur Chasdo, ki lo yisob lekabetz, me'abarucho yisodov lehikobetz, odov lehikobetz. Ubehar meroi morim, oisonu leharbetz, ve'itonu yashov lidochim kovetz. Ubehar meroi morim, oisonu leharbetz, ve'itonu yashov lidochim kovetz. Oy Levado yoshim loy nemar, ki im shove ki beit. Oy Levado yoshim loy nemar, ki im shove ki beit. Yetzaveh Tsur Chasdo, ki lo yisob lekabetz, me'abarucho yisodov lehikobetz, Yetzaveh Tsur Chasdo Eloi Sob lekabetz Me'abaruch Ois Odov lehikovitz Odov lehikovitz Uvehameroi morim Oison uleharbetz Ve'itonu yoshov nidochim koivetz Uvehameroi morim Oison uleharbetz Ve'itonu yoshov nidochim koivetz Oy Levado yoshiv loy nemar Ki im v'shoveh ki beitz Oy Levado yoshiv loy nemar Ki im v'shoveh ki beitz.
It was a very moving and beautiful, beautiful piece. Thank you for bringing that to the Oilam's attention, I hope to wider attention. It was a beautiful piece. Rabbi Zobin, I've got to wrap it up, unfortunately. I could go on and ask you many more questions you won't be surprised to hear. So let me just combine a few, and if I could trouble you for very brief answers. On a desert island, you're marooned on your own, so are you handy? Would you be able to build a shelter? Or would you be like me, somewhat lost?
So the answer is, if this was a desert island with a light bulb and a light bulb socket, with great difficulty, I might be able to attach the two. Beyond that, I would be absolutely helpless. So please do not maroon me.
We won't be marooned. And you can bring a book, but we're going to change it slightly and say, what sefer would you bring to a desert island and what luxury would you bring?
The sefer would probably be the Rambam's Moreh Nevuchim. To me, it's been his Guide to the Perplexed. It's been a source of spiritual inspiration to me. I learn it constantly and continue. It's for me my route to connection to Yiddishkeit. And the luxury, I guess, would have to be a box of tissues. I don't think I can manage without one. So that would probably be my luxury.
And my very final question to you, because I'm intrigued by it. In a desert island, we know from listening to you that you'd probably be learning philosophy and economics on a secular way. If you had to learn any secular subject, you'd be learning Rambam. What do you do to relax? If you had to occasionally relax, what do you actually do?
I love two things. I love reading and learning, and I love walks and nature and countryside. So those two. So I'd have plenty of walking to do on the desert island, perhaps a little too much.
Rabbi Zobin, thank you very much for giving me the privilege of interviewing you. I could have gone on for a lot longer, and I apologize because I think I have slightly overrun our time with you. But it's, from my point of view, been well worth it. Thank you very, very much indeed.
Thank you, Alan. And I'll take this overrunning of the time as your permission for me to overrun my drosha slots in future also.
Always.
I would say that I have posted on the chats group the link to the song. Please have a look at it. It has their pictures of R Moshe Shmuel, my Rebbe, and of his lost chavrusa, Rabbi Yona Minsker. So please I'd ask everyone to take a chance, follow the link and listen to this song. And thank you very much to Veronique, and to you for organising this, and to you, Alan. Sharon Radler, I should mention, for organising this also, and to you, Alan, for interviewing me. Thank you.
Thank you very much.